from Studio 1A in Snowflake Village. You're listening to Pod Bless Kentucky.
All right. Well, we are back in our home confines, back in Studio 1A, back in Snowflake Village. After our trip out into the wild, we actually went out to
They let us out of our cage.
Yeah, we went to the TWW Indivisible Bluegrass and the Our Revolution Together Frankfurt, and there was one more.
Well, there was the Kentucky Initiative was there.
Yep, the Kentucky Initiative, Together Bluegrass, or not Together Bluegrass, but Together We Will. That's what I was forgetting. Together We Will. Together We Will. Indivisible Bluegrass, Our Revolution, Together Frankfurt,
and the Kentucky Initiative.
And the Kentucky Initiative. All right, so we had a good time out there. We met with a lot of people. So if you haven't got to listen to that podcast, it was pretty good. We got to talk to Reggie Thomas. We got to talk to Mary Nishimuta from the KDP. It was a really good time. It's something we'll have to do again.
And Shannon Smith.
Oh, Shannon. Yeah.
That's who else was there.
Shannon
was Walk
Stewart
the Talk.
Walk the Talk.
That's who else was
that was.
there.
I mean, it was a really cool time. We had a lot of folks. I mean, there were a lot of people there with a good message. We could have gotten
so many more interviews if we would have had the
time.
Oh,
I know. It was just such a big day. But today, we are back in our studio, and a lot has gone on. I mean, Jeez. Wow.
That's putting it mildly.
Okay.
I'm overwhelmed, and I've been, excited the whole...
Oh, yeah. The anticipation
I don't know.
Leading up
since the day it was announced that Comey was going to speak, I've been like...
Oh, yeah. And then
was it Roscoe Pico?
Yeah. I mean, and watching the Comey testify, and I mean, it didn't let you down.
Well, he's so composed too. I've been so impressed with.
It makes him so sexy in a way. Because
really?
He is so composed, and he is so articulate. No, he would not be sexy to you.
No.
But it is...
No, I see what you're saying.
Thank you. Good. Yeah. I'm glad, because...
I think some of it is because he came off so genuine today.
Well, genuine and frankly,
composed.
And at this point, competent is sexy, I mean...
I mean, I really enjoyed his opening statement where he expressed that the FBI is not a Democrat or Republican organization.
It's a law enforcement agency.
And maybe that's what made him sexy, is he said everything I want to hear.
Yeah.
Almost everything I want to hear out of even any kind of politician. I want him to be honest. I want him to be sincerely honest. He even had sparks of humor throughout his testimony. They were slight and dry, but I can go with that.
Yeah.
And just genuine. I mean, just... Jesus fucking Christ.
Well,
genuine.
You know what it is? You could see the gold star pinned to his chest in your mind whenever you watch him testify. You could see that honest and truthfulness that you want from people who are in positions of power that control large amounts of people who are supposed to help benefit the United States.
Is it bad that we're drooling over this? I mean, like...
No, I think it was actually good because, I mean, with everything that's happened, we've been questioning... what kind of man is he? What's his motivation? Basically.
I thought he was a bad guy in the beginning. I honestly thought he was just the lowest slug out there when he released that statement about Hillary Clinton's emails way back when.
I think I'm realizing now he's just been a person put in a very bad position most of the time, and he did the best that he could. Yeah.
I mean, he had a job to do.
Yeah.
I mean, he was put in there for a 10-year term, and like he said, that it was meant for a 10-year term because it wasn't supposed to be political.
That's not.
That politics could go either way, but it would still, I mean, he would have to keep the integrity of the FBI.
Yeah. Well, he's appointed by the president, but he doesn't answer to
He
him.
doesn't answer to the president, and he doesn't have to toe the president's
party,
initiative, is his
Party
agenda.
line.
He doesn't have to. He has to answer to the president, and as he stated very clearly in his opening remarks, he knows that he serves at the pleasure of the president. But that doesn't mean that just because the president disagrees with him, that he should fire him at the same time. I mean, like, I disagree with a lot of people, but you can't fire them over doing their damn job.
Well, just because someone appoints you doesn't mean that. And yes, you're right. He does answer to him in the effect of he's the commander in chief. But that doesn't mean that the answers that come out of his mouth are going to be the ones that necessarily that as the president you want to hear.
That's going to toe the party line.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, he's not I actually don't know what his political
He is
leanings
a
are.
Republican,
Well, I mean, but it doesn't mean he answers to the Republican Party for what he does.
not for his job. Correct.
All right. Well, let's listen to some of the things that were said at the actual hearing today.
I don't think it's for me to say whether the conversation I had with the president was an effort to obstruct. I took it as a very disturbing thing, very concerning, but that's a conclusion I'm sure the special counsel will work towards to try and understand what the intention was there and whether that's an offense. Either he had concluded or someone had told him that you've already asked Comey to stay and you didn't get anything for it, and that the dinner was an effort to build a relationship. In fact, he asked specifically of loyalty. My impression.
I mean, so there's this whole idea of that President Trump asked him for loyalty. Now, what does that mean? I mean, I know that, Chris Christie has been saying some crazy
That
things.
sounds like kiss
Fealty.
my ring kind of.
Yeah, I was going to say, it sounds like you're supposed to swear fealty
You're going to have my
him.
back no matter what.
Yeah.
And it's a mob thing, I think, I mean, like, when I heard a lot of not heard, but when I first read.
You come to me on the day of my daughter's wedding kind of thing.
Exactly.
Exactly what I thought of. I pictured in my mind, I saw Trump, Comey walking into the green room, and in my mind, because I've never been to the White House, I guess I've never even seen the pictures, I pictured this green, gaudy kind of room, dining room setup, like straight out of the mob. You know how all the mob movies, all of the upholstery and stuff is red? So I just switched
As
it
they're
over
being
to
served
green.
by Navy.
As somebody comes in and they reach their hand up and they snap their fingers a couple of times, and somebody comes in and
I'd
serves them
like
their
a piece of chocolate cake.
I mean, like, everything about when he was describing it, that setup was The Godfather to me, only in green instead of red, and a Trump instead of.
Now, the big question is when he replied, he was like, "I hope that Flynn is a good guy. I hope you
that
can
you
see through this." Now, is that a direct order of, hey, you need to drop this case, or?
And that's something that some of the Republican guys were trying to pound through.
See, I hear just because I hear plausible deniability is what I hear
exactly.
whenever he says it like that. I hear an attorney saying, "Don't be forthright. Don't." Be
Oh, and one of
direct."
the senators pulled that up. Senator Fisk or Ritchie basically brought that up, and I think I have a clip of that coming up.
Was something big is about to happen. I need to remember every
and this is
single
why you
word
wrote
that is
everything
spoken.
down.
First, I was alone with the President of the United States, or the President-elect, soon to be President. I was honestly concerned that he might lie about the nature of our meeting, and so I thought it really important to document.
He did not direct you to let it go.
Not in his words, no.
He did not order you to let it go.
Again, those words are not an order.
No.
Why didn't you stop and say, Mr. President, this is wrong. I cannot discuss this with you.
I mean, that was Dianne Feinstein and Risch. That's who the senator was that said, "Hey, let's play semantics and say."
But according to Seth Abramson and Lawrence Tribe and a few of the other guys,
other notable attorneys,
the defining point is not so much of the actual wording; it's the intent. It is. Let's see.
Who decides intent?
And this was
though?
done
Okay, so the judge is going to have to
when
decide
everyone
intent.
else had to leave the room. That Jeff Sessions had to leave the room.
Right.
Other dignitaries and within the White House actually had to leave the room.
Okay,
And so he was asked.
as a subsection of the obstruction of justice statute, relevant here involves words. The defendant's knowledge of his words are presumed, meaning, therefore, any obstruction of justice case against Trump is about almost exclusively the nature of the words he said to Comey.
So it's Comey's perception? No.
It's not
about perception.
perception. It's actually the understanding of the words. So, okay, yeah, maybe perception, but
I'm
it's more of
hearing-
the understanding from Trump understood his words that he spoke to mean, let it go. So Comey, and it doesn't matter what Comey feels or what Comey thinks those words meant. It's what the person saying it
You
meant.
know what I'm hearing here? I'm hearing, flashback 20 some odd years, and I'm hearing Clinton in an impeachment trial
And
saying,
that's exactly-
I did
what
not
it
have
depends,
sexual relations.
No, it depends on what your definition of is. That's what I'm
That's true.
hearing. I mean, he's never gonna admit what that meant. They're not gonna let him admit what that meant, even
no.
if that's what he meant.
Him and his field of lawyers that
Right. I was going to say he would lie under oath and say that wasn't my intention. That's not what I said.
Very
Although,
true.
I mean, and he didn't tweet about it. Did he tweet about it?
No.
Did I miss it?
No, they have him locked down in a room full of lawyers until his speech with the religious group.
so
And really need to be
now
televised.
Dianne Feinstein brings up the question of why, I mean, as the leader of the FBI, why didn't he look at the president and say, this is inappropriate? I should not be
please.
talking with you.
This man, in essence, is his boss. You're not going to go tell your boss that he's being inappropriate or he's being wrong or he's being, because you have to protect your job too.
And he also has to think that, what in the crap? Is this really happening?
Yeah,
I think that was more of it, because he kept saying, when they kept asking him that same question, why didn't you do something? Why didn't you say this is inappropriate? He looked at me, he's like, I was stunned.
Well, I was going to say, that's the other thing. You don't always know exactly what to say when you're confronted with something. You don't always know.
Especially at that magnitude coming from the president of the United
Well,
States.
you know,
And you're in the Oval Office, or even when he was at dinner privately with the president.
Well, he's thinking, what the fuck? I mean, no, that's not what he's meaning. Is he
Right.
really meaning that? You're running through that in your brain while he's talking to you, thinking, no, I'm misinterpreting this. No, that can't be right. And then you realize when you walk out the door, holy shit.
And that's kind of what led him
Yeah.
to write all this down, or type it into a
He said
secured
it made
laptop.
him feel nauseous.
Yeah, he was like, wait a second, this stuff is going to be needed later. And just by the feeling of how he was able to read
Right.
the president of that.
What does
this time.
that say about Trump voters and Trump supporters in their initial vote, that the head of the FBI never appeared to trust
The president of the
at
United
all
States.
with any kind of conversation, to the point where he knew he had to write shit down?
No, I was like, boys and girls that are listening. It's considered good CYA, cover your ass, whenever you meet with somebody and you have a pretty important meeting, when you're done, to go back and to document what happened.
But he admitted in his statements that he never had to do that before.
Well, I was going to say, I do know people that do that, though. And after they're done with a large meeting, they will then send those notes to the person that they met with saying, this is what happened, right? But it's been a while, but I was a travel agent for a very long time, and I documented everything that someone told me, because depending on someone's word is a very difficult thing to do.
Oh, definitely.
And so that way, when they came back to me and said, oh, you're wrong, I didn't say that or whatever, I could turn to them and say, on August 7th at 12:47 p.m., you told me.
You said this.
And the thing is that when you document to that point, people don't argue with you.
very true.
That's exactly what he did. He covered his own butt. And I mean, the odds are, perception is definitely individual, but he made sure to walk out of there and turn around and write down what happened, because even he couldn't believe it.
Very
you
true.
know?
Well, he said he got into the car even at one point in time, and he just
Pulled out his laptop and started
that's it.
typing.
He did exactly the right thing because it was fresh in his mind, and he was like, "That just didn't happen." I mean, and I think he also knew this was going to come back. I think
he admitted
knew.
it.
Oh, yeah.
He admitted
He had
it
said
in
that.
there. He said, straight up, he was like, someday we're
This
going to
may
need
come
this
around.
information.
And the
I
crazy
don't think
thing
he
was
thought
is he
this
didn't know
sooner.
who to turn it into because he knew that Sessions was going to recuse himself on the whole anything dealing with Russia, and he knew that he couldn't just hand it over to
Wouldn't
the White
you love
House
to be a fly on the wall for
counsel.
that closed hearing part?
Oh yeah.
How did he know that Sessions was going to recuse himself?
Oh, they saw the writing on the wall because the amount of that he had contacts with Russian, with Kislyak and other folks, they knew he would have to. So, all right, let's see what else they talked about.
It's a great question. Maybe if I were stronger,
Oh, this is him.
I would have.
explaining
I've seen
why.
the tweet about tapes. Lordy, I hope there are tapes.
Me too.
I remember saying, I agree he's a good guy, as a way of saying I'm not agreeing with what you just asked me to do.
Do you ever wonder why, of all the things in this investigation, the only thing that's never been leaked is the fact that the president was not personally under investigation, despite the fact that both Democrats and Republicans and the leadership of Congress knew that and have known that for weeks?
That's a very good question. Marco Rubio asked that question of why, out of all the leaks that have been happening over the last 6 months or 8 months, now, why was it never leaked that the president was never specifically was never under investigation?
So I'm really curious about that myself, and I don't know if Dana listened enough to it. I don't know if you were actually paying close attention. At one point in time, they were discussing the leaks, and Comey said, listen, when you have this gang of 8, I don't know who this gang of 8 is, but he said when you have the gang of 8 and they're the only people who know about
Everything that's
going on, they hold on tight to it and they don't let go of it. Nobody goes outside of that gang of 8.
Boy, it sounds more and more like the mob, no matter what we talk about.
Well, it is.
Yes.
The Gang of 8 is a group of not only legislators but people within the Security Council, or at least the Intelligence Council. I'm sorry, the intelligent community, to be able to just work together, and it's so that nothing gets missed or it ends up in one person's hands.
Think about that statement for a minute. So there's only this one small piece of information that has not leaked to the public because the Gang of 8, perhaps, holds it that tightly.
Oh, and he said that. He said that
But then
the
that
people who
explains
know
why-
don't say anything, and the ones who don't know are the
but
ones
it wasn't
who
attached.
who
I'm
go
saying
out
it
and
wasn't
blab.
attached to that particular question. That was not the question it was attached to. It was attached to a different question.
That's true.
But that would explain, to me, in my mind, why
Why that piece of information released.
has never been released.
Again, folks,
I
as
know.
we do every week, we'd like to remind you these are our opinions. These are not facts that
Yeah.
have been handed down by
we are
anyone.
not handed down by the political elite.
So this is
Strictly
strictly
drawing our own dots
Sunny,
and
Tom,
lights.
and Dana, connecting this as we are. So
Dots and lines, doing it on our own. Thank you.
none of
Okay,
this
so
is gospel.
let's hear his reaction to that.
I don't know. I find matters that are briefed to the Gang of 8 are pretty tightly held.
What'd I
And I
say?
don't want him thinking that I was briefing him on this to sort of hang it over him in some way. I was briefing him on it because we had been told by the media it was about to launch. We don't want to be keeping that from him. And if there was he needed to know this was being said. I woke up in the middle of the night on Monday night, because it didn't dawn on me originally, that there
So
might be
once his memos got
corroboration
out there.
for our conversation. There might be a tape. And my judgment was I needed to get that out into the public square. And so I asked a friend of mine to share the content of the memo with a reporter. The rush.
And I know this is a hot spot within conservative radio. They view these memos as property of the United States government. And that
But he didn't know who to give them to.
right.
So they didn't
Like, who
go
is he going to
anywhere.
give it to? Jeff Sessions?
What he's saying is that he leaked out information from the memos to a professor of Columbia University Law School to release out into the media. And that's how we all learned about this.
Right.
And the conservative talk show hosts and other conservatives are saying, well, that's not information that he should have given out to that Columbia professor. So, I mean, I was like, wait a second. But, I mean, according to Comey, that these memos were actually part of his own property. It was his own recollections, and that he did not put anything classified in them. And he did that on purpose so that it could be discussed at a hearing like this or within the media.
So I guess the real question that they're going to bring up is any meeting with the president considered a one-on-one meeting, considered a classified meeting?
Or property of the United States government.
Your own writings even. So, I mean, how could anybody write a book? How could anybody,
Very true.
That's interesting.
So very interesting.
Elections interfered in our election during the 2016 cycle. That happened. That's about as unfake as you can possibly get, and I've tried to be open and fair and transparent and accurate. A really significant fact to me is, so why did he kick everybody out of the Oval Office?
That's a great question.
The first word he said that you might not have caught was Russia. Was it not? Okay.
Yeah, the Russian hacking, he is 100% sure that Russia hacked into the 2016 election.
Let's repeat that again. The FBI director said that Russia hacked into our elections.
And they will do it again.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, and he says they will be back in 2018
He said it was
2020.
He was very honest that they've taken it up a notch and they're not going to stop.
So if you can't believe, anything, the FBI director says it happened.
Exactly.
But I hate to just call them Republicans because I think there's even got to be some Republicans that don't believe this bullshit.
I think there's probably plenty, but they're not going to speak out.
But
I think this is going to play into a very interesting situation probably in the next few weeks because there is a young lady named Reality Winner. Reality Winner.
I would love to get inside her parents' head and figure out why the hell they named her that.
That's her real name.
That's
right?
her real name.
Because I have to tell you, the first time I read it, my first thought was, what did she win?
But she may have won being a hero within our country because
she's been charged.
She has been charged with treason, actually.
But she's going to enter a no guilty plea, as she should, or a no guilty?
Not guilty.
Not guilty. Not
A
guilty.
not guilty.
I knew it was wrong, but a not guilty plea. I believe, in my guesses, she should fall under the whistleblower.
Yeah,
Act.
is she a whistleblower or is she someone who gives out international secrets?
Well, here's the thing: is that did she go give it to a foreign,
No,
entity?
she released it straight to the media.
So if you didn't give it to a foreign country,
She would have given it to the RT, the Russian state
Russian
media
television.
that's here.
let's just say Putin. She just would have given it to Putin. No matter who she would have given it to there, it would have been Putin.
Putin.
But if you're unaware with what Reality Winner did,
I can't. Her name. Oh my God.
I think it's very ironic that Reality, Donald Trump in the Reality, and then she is the winner because
Again, I just want to get in her parents'
she
head.
actually went out and found classified documents that claim that Russia actually hacked into voting booths or election
Voting
boxes.
machines. They had access to the software out of Florida.
What is her position?
She was a contractor for NSA.
Yeah.
I think.
Okay, so
She was a
She
private
was
contractor that was
private-
hired by the U.S. government
Okay.
to look into security software for elections.
So she has documents proving that the machines in Florida were.
Yes.
That they were trying to hack those machines.
That they penetrated certain levels of.
And that they had contacted
Security.
actual election officials.
So
that
what
they
I
were able to-
understand is they were able to send out. It was a phishing kind of thing. They had another word in front of it, and what they did was they sent out emails to the people who had the control of these
election
officials. As soon as that election official opens the email, they get a malicious software
malware that would
malware kind of thing.
Right.
That's
that
how
could
much.
control like how elections were reported.
Right. They couldn't.
So-
They can't change any. There's nothing that says that they can change a Clinton
actual votes.
vote to a Trump vote. That there's no proof of that. They
As of
can't-
yet. As of yet.
As of yet. But in my mind, that would explain why there's those weird numbers where 115% of the voters showed up. How do 115% of your voters show
Well,
up?
I do know that there were areas that Trump wasn't expected to win, and there were several of them, and all of them he won by like 1.5%.
Yeah.
It was very consistent, which was very, to statisticians, was very
Concerning.
Alarming.
Yes, concerning, yeah.
Concerning.
So I mean, this could get thicker. We'll see how things turn out with
Well, there's
Miss
a lot
Reality
more to
winning.
there's so much more to the Comey hearings, though. Let's not.
Right.
The thing that is catching a lot of people, at least on Twitter, is how many times the FBI director, former FBI director, reiterated that the president lied. I mean, like that he bold-faced has lied. And so you have this director, former director, under oath stating, yep, the president lied about that. Yep, the president lied about that
See,
too.
the thing is, I don't think Trump believes he lied. I think Trump is probably most likely.
Oh, I'm not giving him an insanity case.
No, I'm
Nope,
not going to say
nope,
that. I'm going to
nope.
say he's a very much a narcissist, which means he lives in the moment for what he's saying at that time. And so that's why he contradicts himself so much, because he's looking every day at what's most advantageous to him. And so he doesn't consider it lying. He doesn't see it as a lie. That was the truth yesterday. This is the truth today, is how he...
We'll see how that
understands
works
it.
when he goes in front of the Senate
Wasn't there a children's
intelligence
book,
hearing.
The Truth According to somebody? I'll figure it out.
But I mean, it's going to get very interesting because he's going to have. I mean, now that Comey has actually had his hearing and said what his piece, now we're going to have to hear from the other side.
Right.
And as of right now, it's a he said kind of situation, and we'll see how that plays out.
But I'm going to go
And
back
if there
to
are
my,
tapes,
I'm going to go back to
wow.
my Seth Abramson thing. As soon as I find it, according to Seth Abramson, the he said shit doesn't work with this because of the way the actual law is worded. As attorney, strictly defined as a criminal act, obstruction of justice is about actions of the defendant. It is not about the too much beer.
specific.
It is not about the specific intent of the defendant in acting as he did.
See, what they're trying to do essentially is they're trying to put the blame on Comey for not rebuking the president rather than
Right.
the president, being wrong for what he was saying. You know what? That's like blaming a rape victim. That's what it's like
victim
doing.
shaming.
It's
They're
exactly.
victim shaming.
It's exactly.
Now, one of the things I found interesting on many of these senators, particularly of the Republican stature, was that they kept reiterating that Comey told the president 3 separate times that he was not being investigated.
But I want it to be made very clear. Every time one of those little question guys, the senator guys, would say, "Was the president under investigation?" Comey didn't say the president was not under investigation. He would say the president was not personally under investigation.
Well, I think he was
So-
referring to the campaign. The campaign was
But I take
under
that very
investigation.
differently because, exactly, the campaign was under investigation. Maybe Trump organization is under investigation. Maybe every Trump child is under investigation, but maybe not Trump personally. Maybe they hadn't gotten to...
Right, to that point to where they felt that they
Does that make
would
sense?
involve him.
Well, I was going to say, Paul Ryan just came out defending Trump against Comey.
He just said, but he just...
He just said, this is Politico, just broke this an hour ago, and it says he defended his communication with ex-FBI Director James Comey, saying Trump wasn't steeped in the long-running protocols of how to interact with law enforcement and is new at this. He also expressed sympathy for Trump's frustration with the Russia investigation, noting that Comey testified before the Senate Intelligence Committee Thursday morning that Trump was not the subject of the probe, at least not while he was at the FBI. And then Ryan said, when the FBI director tells him on 3 different occasions he is not under investigation, yet the speculation swirls around the political system that he is, that's frustrating. I think the American people now know why he was frustrated.
Then
it says
why
nothing.
was he fired?
Right. It says nothing about why he was fired or why he told he I mean, we have to say that he told him to back off on Flynn. If you tell a FBI director to back off on an investigation, that is obstruction.
And again, using this, he was too naive bullshit. He was too naive of knowing right from wrong on how to conduct yourself with the head of the FBI. That's bullshit.
And if that was the case, why did Jeff Sessions and other White House officials, why did they ignore it and leave the room?
And not only that, not only did they ignore it then.
Doesn't pass the smell test.
Comey sent emails and actually called and left a voicemail. From what I understand, he called Jeff Sessions and said, don't leave me with this guy again. And Jeff Sessions never returned the call. He never returned the emails.
Right.
So that tells me that
Ryan's trying to cover, or at least put out a speaking point.
And at the same time, wasn't it last night, after the Comey, after his initial statement was released to the press, Speaker Ryan says, oh, well, that was inappropriate.
That was inappropriate. Now, they're just saying, well, he just didn't know, so.
No bullshit.
But
that's like them saying Vice President Pence didn't know that Michael Flynn was under investigation. Comey blew that out of the water
today, yeah.
He said undeniably,
He
yes,
knew.
Pence knew.
So, well, there was a lot going on today.
That's why I was so distracted. I barely wrote any copy for today.
So we have a lot of other stuff to talk about. Locally, we're going to talk about Bevin. We're going to talk about some of the other stuff that been going on. But before we get to that, we're going to talk about Blue Apron. Blue Apron is a fresh ingredient delivery service that brings delicious food right to your own home and makes you become the wonderful chef that you always wanted to be, because they give you the recipes to do that. Blue Apron is great, and it is affordable, especially just signing up. You get $30 off your first trial of Blue Apron. So to do that, all you have to do is go to podblesskentucky.com and click on the link for Blue Apron, and you can have delicious meals starting next week. That would be delicious. Okay. All right. So some of the other things that are happening in our sphere. Comey took up a lot today, but there were other things that have happened this week.
Yes, there had Trump pulled out of the Paris Accord. Except that he can't actually pull out of the Paris Accord. Merkel and others have been okay. So Dana's dying here. Let's see. Is it the joke that says pulling out is not an effective method of climate change?
I'm a junior high 13-year-old boy. I'm sorry.
There, we got it out. So, should I tell it again, or do you need it one more time?
So he wants to leave the Paris Accord,
correct?
But he said that he was going to do it the correct way, which is after.
It actually will take 4 entire years.
So
to
we're not
pull
going
out.
anywhere, y'all.
We aren't technically going anywhere. We also have a lot of governors. We have a lot of mayors. We have a lot of states. Their legislatures are saying, that's nice.
It was something that he campaigned on, that he was going to do, but I don't think it was a huge issue.
Was it because of coal again?
I think he was leaning towards bringing back coal jobs. However, not much of the country was in favor of leaving. There were polls out there that said 65% of the U.S. citizens believed that we should stay in the Paris Accord and continue with climate change.
Right.
I mean, to fight climate change.
To fight.
You guys remember, I mean, I remember living in a larger city growing up, and we had a fair amount of smog. There were days where it was brownish outside.
Oh, yeah.
And because of emissions testing and everything else we've done to get rid of, I'm blanking. This is what happens when they let me drink, y'all. Anyway, I was going to say we have done a lot to where that's not the case anymore. That you can go outside, and most days in the United States, it's clear.
Right. I mean,
do they even still have trouble like in Los Angeles or some of those? I mean, like really
not as much as what they used to.
Well, I mean, they've even done things in places like China and, where they won't allow them to drive certain places for an entire day. And you can see it lift.
Oh, yeah.
In the day that no one drives, you can see it go from brown to
a few
blue.
years back, the Olympics were there, and they asked people not to drive so they could
And it was
bring
beautiful.
the smog. So while the tourists were there, they could actually enjoy. I think it was in Tokyo, right?
No, it was
that's not in
Beijing.
Japan. It was Beijing. Yep. Well, Tokyo's in Japan. What am I thinking?
Beijing,
Beijing. Yeah, Beijing, and
You're a geographer.
I know, but.
I got a B in
Like I
that
said,
class
we've
in
been
college.
drinking a while. But okay, so Beijing, I mean, the tourists were able to come in, and it was beautiful. So now China is even agreeing with this Paris Accord. Only 3 countries have chose not to be part of this.
And you gotta lay off of Nicaragua because they are already, I believe they are 100% renewable energy already. So they already are using water, wind, solar energy.
Okay, and the other one is Syria, which is a war-torn nation at the moment. And
They got other things to concentrate on.
They have a few more things, and we're like, what, a gazillion times bigger than they are? So, I mean... We just look
And
dumb.
I can't imagine, if you've ever seen pictures of the Syria before this war, I cannot imagine that they would have not been the first people to sign on that dotted line for the Paris Accord. Because it was beautiful. They cared about their country.
But China,
I mean, North Korea, South Korea.
holy shit. I mean,
Kenya.
come on. Kenya.
I mean, there is that argument that we had to take the
Sudan.
hugest cuts.
Sudan is on that list.
That we had to take the hugest cuts that as far as the amount of what we paid in
What other
and the
shitholes
amount
can you
of
think of?
regulations that were put on us because of our industrialization. So, I mean,
We are
but we are the
second-
shining city on
But
the
we're
hill.
like the second biggest
So-
culprit of emissions.
Next to China. I believe.
China, I think so.
Right.
And China says, sure.
We got to fix this.
Yeah.
And
We admit we're wrong.
No,
we admit
But they
we
also
need to
have
do
a
something.
scientist in charge over in China in regards to the climate.
Holy shit! No way.
I know, right?
You mean like
Who knew?
somebody who isn't?
You mean
Oh.
you mean not Rick Perry, who majored in animal husbandry in college at Texas A&M, and who's now director of energy? I mean,
Had danced on Dancing with the Stars.
yep. Heaven
There's-
forbid.
So there's this guy, and he's actually out of Kentucky. He's out of Liberty Elementary School. He is a principal. His name is Gary. Is that his name? And he actually it's a hysterical little. He does a video blog. I don't know if you've ever seen it.
Oh, actually, I heard about this. It's getting some notice.
It is. He's
Yes.
getting a lot of notice, more and more. I even have teacher friends up in Michigan that are like, he is hysterical. But he has a way of pointing shit out painfully funny at the same time, right? And I know that this particular thing that he was doing is about Betsy DeVos. And it's called the Wikier or something like that. And he pulls up
The Wicar.
He holds up this booklet and he says, "This is the Wicar." And
it's a test for our legislators.
it's a test for the legislatures to pass, and it's
He's like, you have to read this passage, and this passage
It's
is
reading
is about,
comprehension.
comprehension, and it's a story about someone who is a scientist and someone who doesn't know anything at all. And there's like, who should be the one who makes decisions? Should it be the scientist Or should it be
Well, it's actually
Joe
funnier
who
than
doesn't
that.
know anything at all?
It's Mary who doesn't know anything at all, or it's Joe the baker. And the question, and he reads something and he says, and the question is about who should decide how much is baked.
How much should be made?
And you know that it's because he's an educator. You know that it's directed at Betsy DeVos. And if you saw the Betsy DeVos hearings for the
Secretary
budget?
of
No, for
Education.
the
Oh,
budget.
and her budget.
for the budget thing, where she wants to give like $1 million to private schools and, basically fuck the public schools kind of thing.
If I hit my head as much as I want to over this stuff, I would have brain damage by this point.
I agree.
This
Now-
is just
That's why we
insane.
drink.
Now, going back to the Paris Accord,
might be saving.
I don't know if you guys got to see this. CNN's Van Jones, he actually put out a
like
personal message
That's so
out on
cute.
his Facebook page, basically criticizing President Trump about what he has done with the Paris Accord.
Hey y'all, it's Van. I'm here in DC. I'm trying to enjoy this weather and be happy, but I can't. Because I'm just so frustrated with this whole nonsense that's been going on with this climate deal. Look, here's the reality. Everybody on the left is talking about, I'm so concerned about the climate and the future generations and the polar bears.
And I really think he
all that
hits
kind
the
of
nail
stuff.
on the head with
Look,
this.
I love the polar bears. Trust me, I don't want them in my house. I don't love them that much. But I'm for that. I'm for the future generation. We're missing the point. Here's the point. Donald Trump just threw his own voters under the bus. His own Rust Belt workers. The people who said we don't have jobs. Who said we don't know what we're going to do. Nobody cares about us. We are going to vote for Donald Trump because he's going to do something to make America great and give us jobs in the Rust Belt. What is the number one way that you could have jobs in the Rust Belt?
Energy.
A clean energy revolution that lets those workers who are sitting there
10
idle
points to Dana.
in Pennsylvania, sitting there idle in Michigan, sitting there idle in Ohio, to sign up and start building wind turbines, fabricating solar panels, making smart batteries. This deal that they're now saying was a job killer was going to be a full employment program. Why? What was the deal? You're going to have 190 countries sign up and say they're going to go with clean energy. Guess what that means? What that means is you have 190 countries that just became customers. 190 companies just became customers for American clean energy companies. You have an American president that just threw American workers and American industry under the bus because clean energy jobs are the only jobs growing in America at a big clip. You got more solar manufacturers and more solar workers in America than you have coal miners right now. You have more Americans going to work every day, putting on a hard hat every day in the wind industry than you have in the coal fields and the coal mines right now. Smart batteries, the whole deal. So this is an American president attacking American workers, attacking American jobs, attacking American industry, attacking American innovation. And he is pulling the rug out from under the only strategy that would put dollars in the pockets of Rust Belt workers.
I feel like
how
my head's
else
gonna
are you going to
fall
put the
off
Rust
from
Belt back
nodding.
to work? So you're talking about, listen, fine, like he let down the environmentalists. Boo-hoo. Did you think he was going to do something for you as an environmentalist? He let down the world leaders. Surprise, surprise. He don't like the world leaders. He ran on that. But what he said he was going to do was to create jobs in the Rust Belt. What he said he was going to do was to put people back to work in the Rust Belt. And those people just had their future thrown in the garbage can. Not the recycling bin, the garbage can.
So, I mean, Van Jones really puts it out there. I mean, now that these 190 countries have said that they're going to adapt this policy, now who are we going to sell to?
Well, you think
Are we going to sell coal to China now? No.
Well, I read last week or the week before that one of the deals was that they were hoping that India had planned to build a bunch of coal plants,
Right.
and that
I
it
read
was
about
going
that.
to help us because of that, the international coal market was going to rise, and that was going to be a good thing. Except that wind energy, solar energy has gotten so much cheaper in India that they've scrapped all the coal plants that they plan to build.
It.
And so now it's caused world coal markets, or it's going to cause coal markets to plummet, which is going to hurt us even more here. But Van has a very good point. By the way, if you don't follow him, I advise that you do. He's very intelligent and he's cute. But he's got a very good point. But not just about the Rust Belt workers. We talked about this a million times in Kentucky. They could build some other kind of plant out there and manufacture smart batteries or solar panels or whatever that they can do to get people working and skilled laborers working again. It's hurt the shipping industry because we would be shipping all that crap worldwide. You know, I mean, it's hit us in a multitude of ways. And what that just proves is that, like he said, we knew he didn't give a shit about the environment because what's going on right now isn't important to him. He doesn't give a shit about what's here when
what's
he left,
going to happen
except
in
his
50
name
years.
on a building, you know,
In gold.
Right.
In gold. But he did promise to help the people who are working here. You know, we knew those other things were going to happen. He doesn't care what his world image is. He doesn't care, you know, about any of that other crap. But he did promise people here jobs, and that isn't happening. And this is one of those things that it's so simple.
He not only, I mean, like when he promised them jobs, he promised them that those old jobs would be back. I mean, like he said, oh, I'm going to bring coal back. No, you're not. You can't.
No.
He said
Automation has made it way too easy.
He made
not
the
to hire
Rust
people.
Belt believe that he was going to bring back the auto industries in full force. Okay, fine. They might come back, but hey, guess what? It's going to be robots building your damn cars.
Well, the thing is that people need hope. People need hope, and they need something to believe in.
And
I
job would have been one thing, but to lead them to believe, and that's
it was going to be what they had before is wrong.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
Because
that's
realistically, there's no way it can be that way.
But it is something we need to remind people when the 2018 election comes back. I mean, that there are a lot of promises that he tried to keep, and within doing so, has hurt your family, and it might not have been the right way to go at that time.
And that just goes to show what a short-term thinker he is. He really is. All of these things that he's doing that he keeps saying are going to help the United States, what they really do is help that upper 1 or 2%.
Right,
Very
like
true.
and like we're going to be discussing in just a few minutes, his move to privatize like air traffic control infrastructure in general. He wants to privatize that. Who does that benefit?
The 1%.
It most definitely does, because they're the ones who own that, you know?
Are there going to be jobs created from that? Well, yeah, probably, but
A few
knowing
jobs,
how that
not as many
works-
jobs as
but knowing how that works, you think about the Walmart family. They're making billions, just billions of dollars on a yearly basis, and yet they can't pay their employees a living wage.
Right.
Well,
That's
And
what
hiring
privatizing-
less and less employees.
And that's what
because of
privatizing is going to
automation
do.
well, I was going to say the air traffic control scares the crap out of me because
I don't
first
want
of all,
substandard air traffic controllers.
well, no, you don't. First of all, it's if you subcontract that out rather than having it being overrun by the that would be the Transportation Board,
The
right?
FFA.
the Federal Aviation. I don't know.
I said FAA.
FAA.
Not Future Farmers of America.
yeah, I was
Federal
working through
Aviation.
that. on
FAA.
my-
What's that second A? Federal Aviation
Authority.
Thank you. They dictate the number of hours those guys can work. First of all, they have an incredibly high suicide rate. It's a
Which
very
is
high.
set by, those hours are set by the union.
Yes.
Because
And,
they know what's best for their workers.
and you know
Right.
what this turns into.
Holy
if we
shit.
privatize it, union busting.
Right.
It is.
Yeah, that's exactly what it's going to be.
While the light bulb goes on.
I know. It's amazing when it happens to me. You could actually see it on my face. Right?
Okay. So what else has happened this week?
Oh, I was just about to drink more beer. Hold on. Let me look at my list. So we pull out a Paris Accord. We talked about the privatization of air traffic control. How about those greedy little fuckers of Trump's children who are stealing money.
From poor children with cancer.
Yeah,
They
why?
are.
I mean,
Don't even joke about that.
I'm not. It's sad.
it is. It's
mean,
very
actually,
sad,
how-
and it's
First
illegal.
off,
And disgusting.
First off, these little asswipes go to Africa and shoot beautiful animals in a barrel just for fucking shits and giggles, and then cut off the tail of an elephant. As if that's not bad enough, now they're stealing from kids with cancer.
Yeah.
Okay,
I mean-
I'm going to play devil's advocate
You
here.
can't play devil's
No,
advocate.
I'm not
Although-
agreeing that it's okay, but it is legal in the places that they did that. It's abhorrent. It makes me want to puke, but it is legal where they did it. And
How
whether
is killing?
they're
thought-
allowed licenses
yeah,
to do that.
In those countries, you can.
Yeah, I mean, it's basically paid. You paid for the privilege of being able to do it. I think it's awful. It makes me want to throw up, especially with elephants, because I happen
Elephants?
to love elephants. But yes, it was legal. It is absolutely disgusting.
Fine.
Now back to him. Like,
Rape is legal in
another-
some places too.
Okay, so let's get it back. Okay, now about them stealing from children. With cancer. Now, I know if I was went to my friends, or if I went out into the public and said, "Oh, I'm dying of cancer," or "I'm raising money for cancer research," and
that money doesn't
and
make
that money
it.
doesn't make it.
That
there's
would be
some
fraud.
That's
That is
fraud,
fraud.
and some serious jail time on it.
Okay, could somebody explain to me the logistics of exactly what happened?
Not off the top of my head.
They
Let me-
bought a painting of Donald Trump, a large painting to put into.
I'm gonna lose my beer.
The located at their research or at one of the St. Jude's or actually at their
Why would you
foundation.
scare children like that?
They
So they took
commissioned this huge painting
And they took money
the
that
money
was-
out of that.
Is that okay? So because it was put in that building, normally that kind of stuff is done out of it is a donation from a private person to a hospital. We're gifting you this painting, blah blah blah. Right?
No, it was actually commissioned.
No, but I was saying
where they
normally,
painted. Yes.
that's it would be a gift given
Yes.
to them. Instead, they took money that had been donated to St. Jude's and
Right.
put a painting and gave it. They gave the painting to St. Jude's.
No, they actually put
Auctioned.
it up at. No, they didn't auction
Auction?
it. They actually put it up at his foundation, in their offices.
Okay, so they raised money for St. Jude's.
Right.
I'm just want to make sure I have this completely clear. So the Trump family in some way, or Trump Foundation, correct?
Correct.
Raised money for St. Jude's.
Yes.
And then took the money that was given to them to give to St. Jude's, made a portrait of the Orange Cheeto and put it hanging up at the Trump Foundation.
Very true.
So they could have taken that money, made the painting and given it to St. Jude's, and I think that probably would have been okay, although gross. But they put it on their own private property or on their philanthropic property.
Very true.
Yeah, you can't take money that's
Can't
given
do
to
that.
one place and then turn it into a painting and keep it, because essentially that's theft or
Exactly.
fraud or both.
And
Yeah, I think it's a combination of both.
what's sad is a huge amount of that money came from the McMahon family. Wow, imagine that. Linda McMahon and Vince McMahon of the WWE donated the
wasn't
lion's
she like
share.
thus far the only Trump appointment that's
Been clean?
moderately qualified and possibly not
Like
Not tainted.
super dirty?
But
Vince McMahon is in Let's Get Ready to Rumble Vince McMahon,
yes,
right?
let's
Okay.
get ready to rumble Vince McMahon.
Okay.
They donated $500 million. To
Million?
This. Yeah.
$500 million.
Huge.
And part of that money was turned into a painting. Do
Correct.
we
And-
know how much money?
I'm trying to find that out right now.
I'm working on
Real
it also.
time, people, real time.
So, I mean, and
just disgusting.
Katie Couric actually talked with Linda McMahon about this and asked her if they were concerned because of what happened and that it was donated.
This says that apparently
$4 million.
The painting was $4 million?
No, the donation from the McMahon family was $4 million, and it was the largest donation to the organization. But
To
later
Trump
to find
Foundation.
out, to the Trump Foundation, but later found out that it was misappropriated.
Yeah, 100,000 in donations and revenue funneled $100,000 in donations into revenue for Trump for the Trump organization.
Into
And while-
revenue. How does a foundation have revenue, really? I mean,
Because they're not really a foundation. Everything that they accuse the Clinton Foundation of has, for the most part, been proven that they're doing, which really doesn't surprise me because everything that he's been accused of, he's actually doing.
well, that's a classic. That's a propaganda kind of thing to do. The Nazis did it too.
To try and...
To say, you know, whenever somebody accuses you of something, you turn around and accuse them of the
Somebody
same
of the same
exact
thing.
thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Gaslighting. That's what it is.
Gaslighting, yeah.
Gaslighting.
And
yeah.
Linda McMahon's answer was that they donated that money in good faith, that it was going to be given to St. Jude's Hospital and for children.
And you
with-
can almost believe that because
And
at this
I
point in
believe that.
time,
And so they don't have hard feelings against the president and the foundation because they know that they donated it with good faith.
So why would they give it, if they thought that money
My
was going to
question
St.
is-
Jude's, why didn't they just give it to St. Jude's?
My question is, does that good faith include a position on
why
the
wouldn't they
Pay
just...
for,
Small Business Bureau?
pay for play?
No, nobody does that.
Never.
Yeah, why wouldn't they, if they really felt
Why
it was
didn't
going
they
to
go
St. Jude?
straight?
Because even the Trump Foundation would be allowed to take administrative costs out of it. So if you, I mean, because they are.
But is a painting administrative cost?
No, not at all. But my point is that as the foundation, you're allowed to take, you know,
A certain amount,
a certain
yeah.
amount to pay for, you know, operating costs. But it doesn't turn into material goods like a painting for your foundation. And it is a good question. If the McMahons really wanted $4 million to go to St. Jude's, why didn't they just directly give the money to St.
St.
Jude's?
Jude's, right.
Because I can guarantee you Marlo Thomas would have been a lot happier if she'd have gotten that $4 million check than if it had gone via the Trump Foundation.
Very true. So, other things that are happening.
Oh,
Our wonderful governor. Tell us about what's happening with our governor.
There was one more little talking point that I wanted to hit before Bevan.
Okay, real quick.
Real quick. Kathy Griffin.
Oh, yeah, that was a big thing this week. Kathy Griffin, I'm sure everyone knows, Kathy Griffin, the comedian, actually had a photo shoot where she was holding the severed head of the President of the United States.
Bloody severed head.
Okay, so I can guarantee you Sonny and I are going to look at this differently, even though in the end we agree. I mean, I thought it was incredibly in poor taste.
Yeah.
And, we agree then. Okay, good.
Oh, yeah. It's still not that I don't think it's hysterical.
No, she thinks it's hysterical. I kind of don't think it's very funny, but I think it was in poor taste. I'm really tired, though. Hello, world at large. I'm tired of people being fired or being admonished or something. Every time someone steps out of line and says or does something, you know, a little bit incorrect. We're human beings and we make mistakes. And I'm crossing that over into the Republican Party. Hi, Republican Party. That's you guys too. I'm really tired of every time racial slurs are not included in this. Let's just get that very clear. But I'm really tired of every time somebody expressing themselves in some way. We have free speech here. You know, it was tacky. It was so tacky. It was beyond tacky. You know, that's like slap your mama tacky. It was bad.
Right. You have the right to say whatever you want.
Right.
However, you don't have the right to how people react to it.
Exactly. And that doesn't, I've been told by people much smarter than me that just because something is legal to do doesn't mean that there aren't ramifications for it, you know? And socially, she had to know she was going to catch shit, you know? I mean...
I don't know. I think that, it like in the beginning... She was like, well, probably I'm not, this isn't going to be funny, but it's going to make a statement.
I don't think she thought that she was going to catch any more shit, any more flack than anybody who did the effigies of
But
Obama.
they weren't a political figure or an actual...
Ted Nugent.
Yeah, Ted Nugent.
Yeah, I know. He's crazy. He's totally off his rocker. However, did he or did he not hold a gun up and say that he was going to shoot Obama?
That's true. He has said some derogatory things about assassinating the former president, Barack Obama.
And what happened to him? He got invited to the fucking White House
for the next
by
president.
Trump.
Oh, but that was like Yahoo Day. He had Palin there too.
I mean, there should be some ramifications for something like that.
Well, that's
And
a
and
threat.
that's
The
kinda
thing is that's different. That's an actual threat.
Right.
I'm going to kill the president is a threat and is usually taken incredibly serious by the Secret Service. And
Which is why Madonna got in trouble at the Women's March also, because she said,
Right.
I was thinking about.
Yes, that's considered a threat in regards to, an actual
right something,
retaliation against the president. That's
Right.
it's considered very serious. She didn't do anything but do something that was in very poor taste.
You're
You know,
correct.
Absolutely.
And but she also has to be willing to expect there's going to be ramifications from it. She got fired by CNN. She does New Year's Eve every year with Anderson Cooper. They're actually quite funny. She's always over the top. And if you've ever seen any of her comedy, she's always over the top. That woman talks
Always.
shit about
yeah.
everybody, And, but, them's the breaks, kids,
right. And in my thought, Kathy Griffin, I think she will be back into the social atmosphere and celebrity. She'll always be there. I view her a lot like what happened with the Dixie Chicks.
I saw
The
something
Dixie
on that,
Chicks,
actually.
That's true.
back during the Bush terms, they spoke very critically, and now, she was right there, and now,
I think their last tour sold out. So.
right. So
They had to wait a while.
right.
They did.
And I think that's going to be the case for Kathy Griffin.
Well, everybody,
But I do find it
redemption.
very hypocritical that, all right, Toby Keith.
Oh.
Toby Keith, during the Bush era, he was very adamant about anti-Muslim, anti-terrorist, anti-anything in the Middle East. And as soon as Trump makes his first trip to the Middle
does an
East,
all-male
he does an
concert.
all-male concert in Saudi Arabia.
Which, to be fair, is the rules in Saudi
Yeah, I was
Arabia.
going to say, I can't.
But if you're anti-Muslim
Yeah,
and
you're-
anti-Middle East, then maybe you shouldn't be making a profit off of it.
Well,
You shouldn't be going there and singing.
So I don't disagree, and not even in the slightest, but I'm trying to picture what Toby Keith was thinking, and I imagine
Money.
he's thinking...
Money.
Well, he's also thinking, fuck you. I'm going to sing what I want in front of you because I can, and I'm going to... courtesy of the Red, White, and Blue says we're going to put a boot up your ass. It's the American way. And that's what he's thinking.
He is a huge, giant hypocrite because, he talks trash about rap music. And guess what? He goes on stage and he's up there with a Saudi rapper. Come on.
I don't give him much credence. In terms of... there are just some people
I
that
don't think I've ever heard a single song
I'm
from
starting
him.
to really believe the closest
He
way
is
to
one
a
that I like.
Republican's heart is through their
Money.
billfold. Come on.
Well... I'd like to say that that's not true, but it probably is, I just think that they are more, at least what we're seeing, is that they're more concerned with
Money.
money than they are with the people here who are screaming at them saying, please pay attention. Please don't let this be swept under the rug. Please represent us and, make sure that the United States is the most important thing in your in your mind whenever you make decisions. And I don't think that that's what they're doing at all. I think that
Absolutely not.
It's really kind of disgusting how they're towing the party line against a man who I really believe they don't all have confidence in. I mean,
They don't. And many of them have admitted in underhanded, backhanded, little slights kind of ways. They've all admitted that it's not exactly all
well, it's like
there. Exactly,
Right.
it's not.
When I
it's
got
not presidential.
Yeah, when I happened to arrive here at Studio 1A a little early, and we were watching part of the Comey trials together, and McCain was questioning
I'm worried about
Comey.
McCain, actually.
Yeah, and I expressed my frustration with him. He's obviously Republican. I believe he's probably a very good man, but he loves to rant and rave and scream about all these things that are wrong. And most people go, yeah, way to go, John McCain. Thanks for saying that out loud, And we all agree, even Democrats, largely agree with him about a lot of things. But then when it comes to having to make the decision.
Pushing that button.
And pushing the
inside
button to
on the
represent
floor.
everybody. He always, no matter how critical he is of Republicans in Congress or of the president himself, he always falls in line. Every single time, he never stands for what he says he's going to. He's just as bad as every person up there. And why he keeps getting voted in. Hello, people of Arizona. Let's not do that.
Wake up.
Yeah.
Yep. So, all right.
Speaking of making stupid voting decisions,
So, yeah,
let's talk Bevin.
Mr. 35%.
Is that where he's at now?
No,
Bevin is?
that's actually what he was voted in on. 35% of the electorate actually was the turnout the year
Oh.
that he was
That
elected.
Bevin was elected?
Yes.
Wow. People of Kentucky, hi. I can pick you up. We'll give you directions to how to get a hold of me. I will bring you up
Oh,
to
one
vote.
of the coolest things I saw last Friday out at the...
You triggered something
Yes,
there.
I did. Last Friday at the night market. Now, if you are not registered to vote, they are registering people to vote as you walk through the market. They will get you registered, and you can have
Where is
your
that?
voice. That's at the night market on Bryan Avenue and
It's Friday
Limestone.
nights from 6 to 10.
Yep, from 6 till 10. It's one of the coolest things. They have some great food and get registered to vote because making your voice heard is important.
Especially 2018 and on. We can no longer be complicit to whatever
This
comes.
shit show that's
got
been
to.
happening.
We
It's
can't
not-
do this again.
It's not somebody else's problem. It's your problem. It's our problem. It's your job and my job and everybody else's job to get out there and to make their voice heard. Because if you don't, no matter who that is, and you may not agree with who I vote with, I don't have to agree with who you vote with, but get out there and at least exercise your right, because if we don't all speak up, then no one knows, and then you just get frustrated. I'm frustrated. I know you guys are frustrated.
And I voted, and I'm pissed.
Well, and the thing is that largely that is frustrating. We all go to a lot of rallies. We all go to a lot of marches. We all do these things because they matter. And if you are listening out there, please keep showing up. Please keep showing up. I wish I could say that in a better way. But if you don't show up, they don't hear us. And, show up. It's getting exhausting. I'm getting tired. I know
I'm
Sonny's
exhausted.
getting tired. I know Tom is getting tired. But it's important. And every time I think I'm not going to do that, I make myself get up and do it. It's way too important to sit back. And if only 35% of the electorate turned out for the governor's race here, I know I voted for governor.
But Kentucky actively, I feel like Kentucky, we're like number, I don't remember. We're in the top 10 of most gerrymandered states.
Yes, we are.
And
But
we
then
have to
we also
we have to fight against that.
But worse than the gerrymandering, our politicians, with the exception of Allison London Grimes, who is actively trying to get this changed, our politicians have made it almost impossible for a working person to vote.
I agree. You have to vote on a Tuesday, and it's between 6 a.m. and 6 p.m.?
Is it even 6 a.m.?
Yeah, I think it's 6 a.m. to 7
p.m.
7 p.m.
So we don't have late voting. We don't have early voting. We don't have mail-in. Do we have mail-in?
We do.
What, absentee,
We
yes.
have absentee, yeah.
But you still have to,
But it is very difficult because people live in different areas and work in different areas.
Well,
and
they've proven that specifically goes against the working class.
Correct.
It does.
And I believe it said District 6.
District 6,
is
that's
one
ours.
of the most gerrymandered districts in the United States. That is Andrew Barr's
that's
district.
what gives us our top 10 rating.
Yep, I was going to say that is Andy Barr's district. And
That's our district.
I was going to say mine
So
too.
we need to really work hard and get everybody out. And so if you're not registered to vote, go out to the night market. And I'm sure in this summer we'll be seeing a lot of voter registration drives.
I would encourage people also to go so far as to help Allison London Grimes. Whether you agree with the Allison London Grimes family drama of her parents and grandparents and whatever
And everything that goes
else it
on.
is, I don't really give a shit about that. What I care about is she is actively working for your working class, and she is trying to get it to where it is voting is more accessible to everyone, not just the people who work a 9-to-5 job.
Correct.
And that's what I would encourage people to do. Look past who it is and realize that they are on your side and do something about it.
Yep. So Mr. 35%, what has he done this week?
What hasn't he? No. So our tiny Trump Bevan. Oh, God. So the west end of Louisville, right? It's a very historically black neighborhood.
Okay.
It's a rough neighborhood. It's a very poor neighborhood. And he has come up with a solution to the poverty and
Now,
crime.
if we just had a little
most
prayer,
likely-
if we just prayed about this, I'm sure it will go away. Wait a second.
How did you know?
I just had this feeling because it would sound something like our wonderful governor would
The best
participate
Christian-
in. Yeah.
You know, he and Betty Bowers, the America's Best Christian kind of thing. Have you?
Yeah.
I love her.
If you get
Anyways,
a chance, go on Facebook, look up Betty Bowers, and
She's my
it is
favorite.
hilarious.
But he has this thought that he is going to send out people. I would guess a majority of white people who are going to go out into this community
Into inner city Louisville and
start praying with the people.
They're basically roving prayer groups, and all I can picture is people dressed in white collars like their pastors, dancing like the Sharks and the Jets from West Side Story.
I mean, how did he think this was a good idea? I mean, even pastors within that area have kind of said,
"What
this
the
is-
fuck?"
Yeah, they've come out and publicly said this is not a good idea.
No, it's not a good idea.
And at the same time, I understand he decreased funding for police officers
Well,
in that area.
He also, when it came to the fact when people were coming to him and saying this is a high crime area, that we need to do something about it, his answer was to invite, clerics to a meeting and specific people. It was supposed to be open, and it wasn't open.
Of course not.
And I believe legally it was required to be open, and it wasn't. Again, allegedly. But anyway, he invited specific people. A lot of people weren't included. And, anyway, it is the most ludicrous thing, I think. One of the most ludicrous things I've ever heard. And that's saying a lot considering the past 6 months.
I grew up in a very rural area. I grew up in a very white rural area. And I can't imagine how it would feel to have somebody come in and say, "It's okay, honey, just pray it away. Those people with those guns, they're not going to kill your kid. They're not going to kill your son. They're not going to kill your daughter. Just pray, and it's going to be all better." I can't imagine the resentment.
Well, it's like...
no matter what,
Yeah.
I just...
Well, it's like when it's
Right?
when someone passes away and those people who come up to you and say, "She's in a better place. It's a good thing."
That's a very Christian thing to say.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't mean it to sound mean, but in my tradition, we don't say those things,
Right.
first off. And the first time I heard that, I sat there and I probably had this blank stare of, you cannot be seriously saying those words, because what?
Well, that's it's falling in line with too that it's all part of God's plan. Whatever's going to happen is going to happen, and it almost, to me, it sounds very condescending, and it also sounds like you're trying to convert people when you're out there. We're going to pray to Jesus. You're not going to do whatever you thought you were going to do, and now you're going to go to church on Sunday. And while I'm not knocking somebody going to church on Sunday, not even in the slightest. I'm just saying they've got a problem with violence.
But I also think that's a very presumptuous...
Oh, I think so too.
Very presumptuous comment to say that maybe those people don't go to church on Sunday.
The point is that we have a separation of church and state, and I get what he's trying to do. He's saying community leaders,
Right.
And community leaders do have weight, but that's not going to solve a stray bullet going through somebody's window, or drugs being sold outside on
It
their
doesn't
door.
cure one of the things that's going to help these families, these people that are trapped in this neighborhood.
Right.
The violence that is going on, it is systemic, but it is not the sole cause of that neighborhood.
Right.
The cause of that neighborhood is a lack of education. It is a lack of childcare. It's a lack of jobs. It's a lack of the government. It's the lack of the community, the
Lack of
larger
employment.
community giving a shit about them.
Well, I mean, and you can't tell me that a larger police presence in those areas wouldn't help, you know?
But you can't say that it's going to. I mean, there are so many factors to this. Prayer is not one of the factors.
Oh, I agree. I mean, if that's
police, yes, but not police to intimidate, police to help, police to
Facilitate,
be
yeah.
role models, police to, mommy, I'm scared kind of thing. Okay, let's have the police officer walk through the yard. There's nobody out there.
Yeah.
Not to intimidate these young black kids so much as just to
be a
help
help.
them.
Right.
To help these families.
Right.
And the poverty behind it is huge. And Bevin saying also,
We'll just pray it away.
not only that, he's also announcing now that he wants to have the taxes on the food stamps. So, like when you go to the grocery store, there'll be a tax
To take more
to
money
tax
away.
more money away
from the
from
federal
your
funding.
food stamps. Which I don't even think that's legal,
Well,
but he seems to think he can
It's
do
not.
it.
First of all, there's only so many food items at this moment that are taxed. Most food items are not taxed. The only thing that are usually are candies, sodas, and some hot foods that you can buy from the deli. Fried
Right.
chicken, things like that. Those things are taxed.
Right, but he wants to do that across the
He
board
wants to do that.
tax.
all
No, he
across
wants
the
to
board.
tax everything because we've talked about this. That he wants to do. We talked about this with Reggie Thomas. That
Right.
he's talked about a across the board sales tax on groceries.
Which
The only people it impacts everyone to some extent, but the people that it truly impacts are,
It
poverty
basically
level,
takes
low
food
income.
out of the low incomes. mouth.
Absolutely,
It does.
absolutely. It's really
and that isn't going to help the crime. When you're hungry and you want your dinner, you want something, what are you going to do? You're going to resort to crime.
well. The thing
Right.
is that what that does is, say you have $100 to spend on groceries, and all you've got that for is for 2 weeks. And you go spend $100 at the grocery store. If you decide to tax it at our current sales rate, which is 6.25%,
6%.
okay, 6%. So basically, you're saying you get $94 worth of groceries, and I'm going to keep $6. You basically took, a bunch of bananas, a bag of apples, and a head of lettuce out of those kids' mouths.
And then compare that with Trump's plan of cutting food stamp programs and other social
Safety nets.
Safety nets. That's going to even take more money away from needy families that need assistance to survive.
Just because you're poor doesn't mean you're lazy. And I'm really tired of the working poor, the people who are busting their asses to be able to make sure they can keep their lights on, having things taken from them because you consider them a drain on society. Look at the numbers at exactly what programs like food stamps fall out of the budget. It's really, really,
Really small.
really low.
It's like 1%.
Well,
of
yeah,
some
I was going to say, I believe the last pie
minuscule
chart I
number.
looked at, defense was about 57% of our budget, and the nutrition services and stuff was about 1% or so.
It wasn't more than 5%.
No,
if I
it
remember
was
right.
low. And the thing is that's one of those things, you're cutting pennies when we need to cut dollars, and that's stupid. You want to go cut somewhere where it makes a difference rather than the well-being of your constituents.
Which is why that whole, I'm going to have to go back to the prayer. That's why that pisses me off. They don't need you praying about it.
No,
They
need
need
action.
you doing something about it. They need you actually
Participating.
participating. That's a brilliant idea. Let's send Bevin down there 11 o'clock at night with his little Bible to thump at him.
Well, the great thing now,
We'll see how
a
well
good thing
prayer
is,
works out.
is starting this week, if you are a ResistBot user, you can now contact Governor Bevin's office through ResistBot. And if you're unaware with how to use ResistBot, what do you text to?
You text 50409. You text that number. And
Resist,
you
right?
use the word resist.
And they'll
and
get
it
you set
walks
you, walks you right through it.
You can't.
And you
can
can send your
can't mess it
message
up.
to Governor Bevin, as well as your other congressmen, and they will get the message.
I was giddy when I saw it, when it popped up and it said your governor is Matt Bevin. I was like, My governor is Matt Bevin. I can use ResistBot. I can torment. So here's also the thing. If you're feeling froggy, if you're on Twitter, and you really just want to poke at Governor Bevin, we have a thing called Team Cicada. Hashtag Team Cicada. Anytime you want to make sure that you get underneath his
tiny
skin,
little skin,
his very thin skin. When you do your @ Governor Matt Bevin, hashtag Team Cicada. I'm not blocked yet, but I know a lot of people who are blocked.
Well, not everyone is happy with the president's mode of working with things and his way of tweeting. And this week, Neil Cavuto, who has actually is a Fox News pundit, and he
a conservative one, correct?
Right, he is. He is a conservative, and he spoke to Donald Trump about what he feels is the problem with his presidency. So we'll end our show with that, and you guys have a great week, and look forward to hearing and having you guys see us next week.
So the president's having dinner tonight with key Republicans on getting this whole health care thing back on track. Here's hoping they ruin his appetite. In fact, everyone's appetite. Here's hoping they get brutally blunt with the president. Here's hoping they give him some food for thought and let him know if he keeps doing what he's doing, they'll all be politically puking next year. He'll get angry. Some of them will get angry, probably furious. Maybe start tweeting about the first one who dares question his wisdom. Like he did today when he tweeted, and I quote, "The fake mainstream media is working so hard trying to get me not to use social media. They hate that I can get the honest and unfiltered message out." Mr. President, it's not the fake news media that's your problem. It's you. It's not just your tweeting, it's your scapegoating. It's your refusal to see that sometimes you're the one who's feeding your own beast and acting beastly with your own guys. Those are your guys, Mr. President. They're on your team, Mr. President. And right about now, they seem shell-shocked and dejected, though looking at their deer in the headlight eyes, I bet they're too afraid to tell you. Now, they're not perfect, but they do have your back. As no less than the Wall Street Journal muses today, do you have theirs? Mr. President, they didn't tweet disparaging comments about a London mayor in the middle of a murder spree. You did. They didn't create that needless distraction. You did. They didn't get you off your very valid and very promising agenda. You did. They didn't turn on a travel ban that you signed. You did. You're right to say a lot of people are out to get you, Mr. President. They are. But as the Journal pointed out, the buck stops with you, Mr. President, and risks ruining the very promising economic agenda that has buoyed spirits and the markets because of you, Mr. President. That's good. Look at these critiques you're now hearing from usually friendly and supportive allies as sort of like an intervention. Because firing off these angry misses and tweets risks your political destruction. Quoting the Journal, if this pattern continues, Mr. Trump may find himself running an administration with no one but his family and the Breitbart staff. People of talent and integrity won't work for a boss who undermines them in public without thinking about the consequences. Consequences for them and you, Mr. President. And the Journal knows because they like you. They like your agenda. I find it ironic that on this, the 73rd anniversary of D-Day, some of your most ardent backers are desperately girding for another battle, not for Normandy, for normalcy, for sticking to an agenda that matters and not silly distractions that do not. That is what your most ardent supporters are pushing for you to keep pushing. They want you signing legislation, not settling endless scores. They're not saying never let them see you tweet. They are saying never let them see you sweat. Remember, no one ever said that Harry Truman didn't have a temper or that Ronald Reagan a long memory. They just preferred giving their critics hell than telling them to go to hell. Now, just because your own critics never thought that you'd make it to the White House does not mean you shouldn't listen to those who want you to thrive and succeed in the White House. They're not the problem, Mr. President. Like I said, these days, you are.
from Studio 1A in Snowflake Village. You're listening to Pod Bless Kentucky.